This is Pop Culture Confidential, and I'm Christina Yerling Biru. Hey everyone, and welcome to the show. It's 2:17 a.m. This is a true story that happened in my town. It's like a normal day, except Ryan McQuade is here to talk weapons, by popular demand, actually. I've had several listeners ask why we haven't dug into Zach Cregger's phenomenon a bit more in depth, so I'm thrilled to have Ryan from AwardsWatch here joining me. Thank you, Ryan.
Somewhere in the world, it's 2:17. It's like when it's 5 o'clock somewhere,
Exactly,
which basically means we can drink technically during this episode.
That's where your head goes.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm just saying, I get a bowl of water and I start drinking this early in the morning. Okay.
Some twigs, you're all set.
Some loose hair.
This is going to be a spoiler-filled discussion, people, so we're gonna let loose. But I'm still gonna tell you a little bit what the film's about in case any of you don't mind spoilers and are listening anyway. So this is Zach Cregger's third film. Barbarian, his Airbnb horror film, was his latest. The premise is what I mentioned there, that at 2:17 one morning in a suburban area town, 17 children, all from the same class, run from their homes and disappear. The film introduces us to several characters. The teacher, Justine Gandy, played by Julia Garner, she is under immense suspicion in the town. The father, played by Josh Brolin. There's a police, Alden Ehrenreich. Local drug addict, Austin Abrams. The school principal, Benedict Wong. Young Alex, Carrie Christopher, in a tremendous role, I have to say. He's the only kid that's left. And of course, who could have missed Aunt Gladys, the summer's phenomenon, one has to say, veteran actress Amy Madigan. And we're going to break down themes and filmmaking. But I thought that we'd start a little bit with our own reactions to the film. Should I start just briefly with my thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Go right on ahead. I'm very curious to know what you think of this film.
Okay, so I've mentioned it on a show before that from the kids running out of their homes at 2:17 to George Harrison's Beware of Darkness, I was hooked. I loved this movie. I think it's scary, funny, layered, difficult themes that make you think of school shootings. But for me, the most poignant theme is that of addiction, that a child would see his parents transform into monsters, into this scary state, and you have to keep this secret going. And I thought that was very powerful. I'm going to ask you more about that, and I think there's some very personal things for Cregger going on there. But it also appeals to me so much because I think there's so many nods to, quote, my directors. Spielberg's way of depicting suburbia, which is both magical and menacing and full of grief, not to mention Stephen King's The Darkness Under Suburbia, Lynch's off-kilter menace, Tarantino's crazy cathartic endings, and of course that movie that he references so much himself, Cregger, Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia, with the intersecting chapters and characters all struggling to keep it together. And a fucking bananas ending that had me laughing. So I'm really happy with this movie. How about you, Ryan?
So I haven't been able to stop thinking about this movie since I've seen it. And I'm slowly starting to think this might be my favorite film I've seen so far this year. I'm slowly getting there. I don't know if I'm all the way there. I've been trying to wrestle with that nugget. Like I went and resaw the film this past weekend and I had just as much fun and I was thinking just as much about it afterwards because, well, Christina, I had to take our finest film critic that we know out there, our finest mind of cinema. I had to take my wife to see this thing. Of
course.
And usually if my wife doesn't like it, it's probably because she loves horror movies. If she doesn't like it, then it's a no-go, I think, out there. And she was pretty affected by it. And I think, we were still 2 weekends later in a half, filled auditorium and people were still reacting to it. She was jumping at the right moments. It felt like one of those like commercials where you see people are, in the the green light or whatever, and they're like, this movie's so scary, and they show it to the audience and the reactions to things. My wife was glued, jumping. There's a early scare early on, and I think that this is when like people really get into it. It's not necessarily a story, but it's a scare in which someone comes out of the house.
Oh, the
And
car
Justine,
scene?
the
We're
car scene where
spoiling it.
Justine, oh yes, where Justine Gandy is passed out, intoxicated as she's waiting to watch Alex and see this house. And Alex sort of possessed, I guess, or under controlled mom from Aunt Gladys walks out there, and instead of just rolling down the window and or whatever, or opening the door, she climbs in the back seat and cuts her hair, and it cuts the end of chapter. That's the end of Justine's chapter.
It's not a classic jump scare because you're just screaming the whole time saying wake up, and she's in
No,
the car. It's also
you're just going,
slow.
no, no,
It's
no,
really
no, no,
slow.
no,
Yeah.
no, 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 no. You're just, yeah.
And the camera's only on Justine, on
Yes.
Julia Garner, so you feel someone
Sound.
behind you, right?
Yes. It's very Halloween
Mm.
of, when in Halloween, the original one, Michael Myers pulls someone in the back seat and stabs him. And it reminds me of my dad telling me that he went and saw Halloween midnight screening when it came out, and he dropped his date off, and the whole time he was driving home, he had the light on the back seat, and he was like looking over
Yeah.
his shoulder because he's like, because it's real, because it's not, you know what I mean? Like you're thinking, oh shit, like, this guy's gonna, what if I left the car open and someone comes and stabs me? So it's very much like evoking that feeling, which I think is like when you make scares actually real as opposed to supernatural or in the ethereal. And this film kind of has like both of those, which I think is great. But
Yeah, and there's several
um
of sort of the non-jump scare moments, which I was kind of impressed by because we've had so much of that
yeah.
lately. And also the sort of opening door with just nothing behind it.
Well, I also just think too that that house has wonderful door hinges and doesn't
Yes.
need WD-40 at all. Like they open no creaks or anything. I was just like, wow, Gladys really, got to work on
Oh,
making sure
she's
those
fixing
doors
that up.
came in and came open and closed very quickly. No, I think the movie is you know I think it is a Rorschach test on the audience member as to what they take away from it and what they grasp. I think that there has been pushback from that, and I think that pushback is ill-guided and just very much not how you're supposed to read this movie. I think that there's been a pushback from a lot of people about, is this movie about something? Does this say anything? Is it actually about nothing? And using Cregger's words of ambiguity and openness, very much again, and weaponizing that. And I've seen the discourse about that, Christina, as honestly a weird commentary on then the film itself, because it's like I think you then didn't get the point of the movie that you're talking about, which is then, you know, simple things in life can then get used and weaponized against us. And I think that you're right. There's this addiction, grief, the idea of generational power being at the forefront of this film. There's so many things going on,
Yeah,
and
and just
I
like
think
nods to the kids are all right, but the parents are all messes.
exactly every adult in this movie has problems, and the idea of the world that they live in has already been saturated, and this event is going to saturate the youth. We always say that like the children are our future. That's the literal, like saying, and this is stripping away any of that vanity. I mean, like literally Aunt Gladys is stripping away the soul of these children, right? And in order to cling on to an old world vanity, looks, and stability in our world. And those and you can interpret that, I think, as the old school way of thinking. Maybe that's Republican, maybe that's Democratic values, whatever the case may be politically or socially. But it is that, and it's in there. And whether or not Cregger made that intentionally or not, because I don't know if he did, we're never going to know. He's not going to tell you. This is very much like David Lynch. He's been vague. He's been, for
He has said, sorry to interrupt you, that he did lose his friend, his
yeah.
co-actor, and that he wrote this in the process of very much grieving, whether or not that's actually the movie or just that he was writing it with that sentiment is I think maybe people have read a lot into that.
No, I mean he's talked about that aspect as the gateway to get in. But then once you get in,
Right.
certain things come up. I've seen screenshots of interviews where people have literally asked him about the gun violence angle of it. And he has said that in those interviews that he did not intentionally go out to make a movie that's political. I would also note that those interviews did not ask the follow-up question, which is it okay then for an audience member to do that? And then to highlight my good friend and contributor over at AwardsWatch, Griffin Schiller, who did sit down with Cregger for the playlist and did ask him a version of that question. So while that was going around, I was like, somebody's got to ask him the follow-up question, and Griffin did. And Cregger stated that if the audience sees that, then that is their interpretation, and that's not wrong. So
No, right.
to
I mean,
chastise people and all this different stuff is not necessary. This movie turned very volatile online, it felt like, and is so interesting because like the characters then by the end of this movie are very volatile and very, and they're literally ripping each other apart, which is very, so it was watching this in real time after seeing the film. I was like, okay, this movie is actually speaking a lot to the things that people don't want it to be about or are afraid to talk about. And I think that that's the best thing about movies is when it has multiple meanings, it has certain things, people take it away and it challenges the viewer. And this is what we talked about with Sinners earlier this year,
mhm.
Christina, is challenging the viewer in genre. It's been such a great year. You talked about this with Sean Fennessy 28 years later and Sinners. These are movies
And you and
from
I
this.
talked about it in Sinners,
Yes.
and that whole, and I like that you say that this movie is what you bring to it, right? I
Yeah.
mean, I for me it was something new, the angle of a child who has to sort of take care of this entire situation, feeding his parents, not saying anything when he gets to school. He doesn't want to mention anything. And for me, it felt very much like a child who was hiding something as embarrassing as its parents being alcoholics. I mean, that could be someone else could interpret that in another way, but I felt that it was a different kind of storytelling that I appreciate very much in this. And then the amount and how it sort of switched tempos after that was just amazing. I was mentioning those other filmmakers that I can,
Hmm.
feel going through it from Tarantino to Magnolia or to PTA Lynch. Do you feel that too in terms of his filmmaking?
Everybody that you said there was absolutely who I was thinking of. I mean, I was thinking about, I mean, he literally stated he ripped the beginning of this movie out of Magnolia. I don't necessarily like feel 100% that it is like a straight up Magnolia, mirror to mirror comparison, but it is very much an homage to that. And I think
Right. I
people,
mean, there's
and
all of those things are, yeah.
exactly. No, no, no. And I think that, some people have, been like, well, is it really Magnolia? I'm like, well, nothing's Magnolia. Like, there's no frogs in this fucking movie. Like, like that movie is wild and weird and, but then, yeah, I mean, I was thinking a lot about the ending about Tarantino and what he's done with Inglorious Bastards, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, even
That's what
Django
I was thinking
Unchained.
about too. Exactly. That sort of crazy ending that he does, which feels very cathartic. You sort of, this is the ending you want. It's not the
Well,
real ending. But it's,
well, to the point of generational power, it is then what happens with the last ounce of effort that these children have to take back whatever little autonomy they have in their for their generation away from Gladys and destroy the evil spirits that are had tried to take over um, their voice in the world. Like literally their
messes
voice.
every single adult in this
It takes a
movie.
year for these kids to speak again. Like it literally takes. They're taking their voices, which is very much I think something that that happens with tragedy. I think it happens with policy. I think it happens with culture. I think it happens with elections. And a lot of these children don't get to speak because they don't get to vote in these elections. And so the ramifications of even something like the Trump administration get they're silent on it. Their opinion means nothing. And yet their leeway to be able to maneuver society and economically and culturally are based off of these horrible policies. So it's totally there. You have to just meet the movie again a little bit in your what you bring into it. And I was seeing that and reading that from that. I mean, the fact that then it says, but then if you want to take it to the school violence of it all, the fact of the matter is that like it takes a year or two for even some of these families to speak. So the end coda, which I think a lot of people are missing, is that final line of it's taken a year for some of these kids to get their voice back. Most of these kids don't get to have their voice back because those parents of mass shootings are the ones that finally are speaking for them. And it's a different form of voicing the tragedies that happen
Yeah, and
to
the
them.
community grief, I think you can feel I was thinking of that. What happens to a small community when a whole class or a whole school is affected like this?
Yeah.
We're very lucky to not have been had anything that like that happen to me, but you see all these emotions, anger and sadness, and I very much thought of that as well.
Well, I haven't had it affect me, thank God. But I did work for the school district here in San Antonio when Parkland was happening, and we did not have policies and procedures in place for the event of an attack. And we did have somebody actually jump over a fence one day, and it was just a random person. It wasn't anyone to harm anybody, but we had to prepare like what would that be the case. And it's very serious and it's very scary because you not only have 40, 50 kids to take care of, you also have yourself, you have these staff members. It's a very scary thing. And little things, it's easy to play Monday morning quarterback on these sort of stuff and try to pick apart this movie and be like, well, that's not how this would work, or that's not how this work. I mean, another one that's very close to home here, Christina, is Uvalde. Uvalde
Oh,
is
yes.
I
Where
think
the parents weren't allowed to go in. I mean, where
they
they
weren't
were
allowed to go
pleading
in.
with the police to
There's
go in.
hundreds of police officers outside of this school. This guy is shooting up this place left and right, and they won't let him in. And this woman, and this is part of this great documentary I saw at South by Southwest called Uvalde Mom. She went around the school, went in and grabbed her kids. This woman has then been under scrutiny by the police department, the community. They've tried to separate her from her family because she's speaking out in advocacy against these police officers and trying to find answers from the school board and everything. And they and the end of that the end of that documentary is about finding out that they kind of created and tampered with evidence to try to get her put in jail off of parole so that she wouldn't see her kids anymore. They threw it all out and everything. Meanwhile, they won't actually, pass things in the House of Legislation here in Texas. They rather just get more congressional seats for Republicans. Like there's no gun legislation, and there was this growing sentiment is that when the floods happened down here in Texas, there were a lot of Texans that were very frustrated and a lot of Uvaldans that were very frustrated by the fact that they had special sessions for the floods and for this camp that is a predominantly Christian white camp. And meanwhile, they have had no type of hearings whatsoever
Mm.
for gun violence, and especially when it happens to predominantly brown children. And I find that to be a massive hypocrisy, but that is the thing that power holds is the hypocrisy of it. And the decisions that we make are the ones that affect our children. And it puts them in danger. And then therefore puts them in contact with things that should never be something. They should be worried about homework and who has a crush on who and their extracurricular activities. They should not be having to worry about like when it was my parents'
Oh no.
generation about getting under a table and if a bomb was going to drop or if a gun's going to come into school. These should be eliminated from that stuff. And I think that Cregger's, whether he intentionally or unintentionally, he walks into it because of the setting, and you bring that baggage in. And that's why when the cops act a certain way or the search isn't happening the way it is, there's always, with these cases, been the lack of actual checks and balances when it comes to finding answers for
Good
this
point,
stuff.
because the police force in this movie is, you can feel that they're not doing quite enough.
I mean, they're not there. I don't
They're
think, I mean, they are doing exactly what everyone does. And that's the thing is they, of course, they're not doing enough because we don't do enough as a country.
going back and talking about, are all the characters, were you happy with all of them?
Yeah. No, I mean, like going back to your thing about like hiding a trauma, hiding
Mm-hmm.
a secret, every one of these people have flawed secrets. When I was watching the second go around, I mean, Justine is an alcoholic. So is Alden Ehrenreich's cop. We obviously have Austin Abrams as a literal, drug addict. Um, I have to say this, like Benedict Wong, he plays he's a gay man in a gay relationship, but you have to kind of hide that at school districts because of the way that parents are nowadays. They don't want like this rhetoric thrown out there. You don't see him and his husband at functions. You
Mm.
just see them at home. And out in the supermarket away from people. I have family members that are part of and myself are part of the LGBTQIA plus community. When you work with, you're not supposed to push upon your who you are, but yet they can push upon the Ten Commandments onto every child and under the platform down here. But whatever. Then you have Josh Brolin, who I think is an interesting character because the second time I watched this, Christina, I picked up a lot of the fact that this man is former military or has some sort of military
He's
background.
the father of a bully.
He's a
I
follower
mean,
of a bully, so that's why when I was thinking about the scene, I think that the scene that has frustrated some people or confused people, which is the AK-47 over the house that turns into the 217 alarm clock. I mean, this is the idea of a soldier almost having PTSD type of dreams, and the ultimate weapon isn't the gun. It's the alarm clock that went off that they have no answers for, and there's also this tragic thing that you could say, and this is a truly tragic thing, which is that that weapon in these school shootings, we do know what happens in those. We understand that it's a troubled individual that takes matters into their own hands and enacts violence. In this case, like the sheriff says, those kids ran out of those houses. We don't know what that is.
mhm.
So that's even more terrifying to a parent, is not knowing the reason to blame, because we want to blame. He's blaming Justine Gandy, but he doesn't have the answers to, and even the evidence to blame her. But we want to blame somebody because what we don't know something, we lash out. And I think that Brolin's character is fantastic. I think that Julia Gardner's character is great and layered, and
Multi-layered,
as
yeah.
this person that really wants to help but also has deep flaws of and almost like seems like has multiple personalities with guys, or let go of another school because of having an affair, gets really too close to people, almost obsessive over that, but yet has seems like it has a heart in the right place, and is someone also that we don't talk about, I think, not in these tragedies, the teacher, if they survive these things, or people that are left behind. I think that that's what's so great about her and Alex as a character, is that like these people are left behind. We don't get those perspectives a lot, you know,
And she
especially at
can
such a young
see
age.
that Alex is going through stuff even before all this happens, of course. She sees what the other boy is doing to
Yeah.
him and that he's not talking. And we were mentioning that so masterfully did these sort of non-jump scares that he does, these little things that he's done in the movie. I was reading, I think this is correct, that in the script he describes how these children run, how he wanted that to look, with their arms out, sort of. And he
It's
described
terrifying.
it's terrifying that he described it as that really heartbreaking, horrifying picture of that little girl in the famous Vietnam photo who's been burned by napalm, with her
Yeah.
arms sort of out back. Um, so there's so many things in your head going on from that visual and from that music, and I think he does that quite a bit. But I have a question for you. I was wondering, there's funny comment here when the drug addict is in the house and he finds the Willow, the
Mm.
movie, and he says, "Ooh, Willow." Is that just a funny comment, or is there something about Willow that and Cregger and something that I don't know?
I don't know. I haven't seen Willow in a long time. But and maybe that means I have to go and do it. I mean, and do the rewatch to see if there's a Willow connection. But I mean, if there is, then that adds another layer to this thing, doesn't it? I mean, that is a movie that is, I think a fantasy, and I think that by the end of this movie, like the kids taking back their identity is a fantasy because we live in a world where sadly these kids don't have a voice. Like once are used as a political talking point after an event like this, they are a statistic. And thoughts and prayers are essentially all that politicians care about. So that's maybe the cynical way of it. Maybe there's something more poetic about it. I mean, there is. I think that whole sequence is with Austin Abrams is great. I mean, like I don't think that there's a bad sequence in this movie. That's the kind of great thing about it. And there's some of them are more tragic than others. They're honestly all of them are deeply tragic because like and
Hmm.
they have moments of great comedy and laughs inside of it. Like like Austin Abrams like trying to find like opening try to open car doors so that he can get money for drugs, and he tries to um sell this iPad, and he's like 10 5
Yeah.
anything. Very funny when he realizes that like that he can get the 50,000, and he's just like, but like where can I come get it, because like I'm not like good with cops and you know what I mean. And but it's also then the perception of that is like a drug addict found the kids. So will you believe anybody? Like the wanted sign says, would you believe in anyone? Like anybody has any information, please come and call. Well, okay, put that test to the theory, or the theory to the test, because of the fact that, okay, this is an individual that throughout most of society, and even including Paul's case, played by Alden Ehrenreich, doesn't trust him, seems shady. He's like, doesn't give him the benefit of the doubt when he was clearly trying to get into a place that it wasn't his. But it's like, do you trust somebody like this? No, you don't. So it's very interesting. Um, every sort of social layer that attaches it, and then once they all start connecting to one another, and how Cregger is able to, and I have to say, the one great thing about this that is wonderful is as these timelines sort of overlap one another, I don't see the same scene over and over and over again through their perspectives like some films do. Like you see maybe a brief thing, like the perspective of when Paul walks into the bar and meets Justine, or the perception of from Josh Brolin's point of view at the PTA meeting, but it's quick stuff. It's not the full scene. It's just the more impactful thing that ties into all that. Um, but yeah, I just think that this movie has so many damn interesting things to say, and and also if you don't want to take any of that into account, if you don't want to take in any political or social themes to this, if you just want an entertaining movie, which is what this movie should actually be from the beginning, then you need to have that. And this movie is so entertaining, Christina. It is like a mirror of, I think, of Sinners, where like both of those films have to work on a popcorn level before they get to the second level. And both of those movies done by filmmakers that were given complete control over their film. And I think one a little bit more of a gamble with Sinners, because like this is still in a $40 million range, and like it's horror, and this is more classic horror, right? And that concept is such an interesting concept that you can get probably people into the theater. But Coogler also being $1 billion filmmaker, he can get anybody in the theater. So it's very interesting to see just the mirroring there of from Warner Brothers, a studio that like we were debating at the beginning of the year, are they going to be able to survive? And now they've had the best year I think of anybody.
Answer yes. Let's end this up by talking a little bit about Gladys. We must.
Yes, we must talk about Aunt Gladys.
Amy Madigan's performance is pretty amazing. I think we both agree. You were mentioning a few criticisms to the movie. One thing I've heard quite a bit, which I personally don't agree with and don't want, but is that you don't know enough about
Oh my God.
this character and what it all means and the twigs and is it a witch or is it not? I asked a few of these people, okay, so what did you want? Because now they're talking about a prequel, which I hope that sincerely they don't do, but I've asked, would you want that? Then they say no, they don't want that, but they still feel that it's not enough.
I think that this lingeringness of Gladys, we see her in sort of multiple dream sequences or hauntings or whatnot. Like she wouldn't be the personification of evil or if she wasn't showing up in all these people's lives. She shows up in Josh Brolin's house. That's literally the great line in the film, the great moment in the film where he goes, "What the fuck?" from that dream, and then he shows up in Justine's room, shows up in the woods with Austin Abrams to terrify them, like to put them off kilter, to know that like that evil is lingering around them. The more they think about this case, and also it's about any time someone gets an inch close to getting close to the truth. Justine thinking about Alex, and that day of seeing Alex, she's at home and gets scared. You know, the, Josh Brolin's character, which escapes me at this moment. Um, he's having this dream sequence, and that's where he starts figuring out the way on the map
Yeah, the
to
path
to
the
lo-
kids took. Yeah.
the path to get to him. Austin Abrams finds literally the kids in the basement, and Gladys is there. So it's about like the evil does not want to be let out, so it is going to find and attach itself. The first time I was going, I'm like, what is that? How does that connect? But it's like if it's what she tells Alex. I don't want to be found. Tell anybody, I'll kill your family, right? And so don't tell anybody about this stuff. And if anybody finds out, I'm going to take matters into my own hand. I mean, literally, that's why Gladys kills, has Benedict Wong kill his partner and then kill and gets killed himself. So I think she's a deliciously wonderful character, sort of built off of the sort of similar character from Rosemary's Baby. And Cregger's very much said that that's and Madigan in a great piece with Kyle Buchanan for the New
Mhm.
York Times talked about influences. I heard this complaint as well, Christina, and it's then I guess the follow up question to be like to those people would be like, and no, and this is no shot at them. What the fuck do you want?
I
Like,
know that's
like it's like they are announcing a movie which, or they're in talks about a prequel, like a Gladys prequel, which I think would be a terrible idea
oh no, no.
because like that's how they ruined The Conjuring. That's how they ruined Insidious. That's how they've ruined every one of their horror properties over there at Warner Brothers is then a spinoff or a prequel or sequel. Just leave something the way it is. That's why a movie like I don't know if you ever saw Malignant a couple of years ago. I love that movie. They ain't touching that thing with a 10-foot pole. They didn't touch Barbarian with a sequel. So leave those alone. Let horror movie and I know that they talked about like, oh, maybe Sinners 2. No, leave that alone. Like just let movies not have sequels,
One of the great
you know.
things about the introduction of Aunt Gladys is that we didn't get like a couple minutes of backstory
No,
about
we
her.
didn't get
That
her
we were
chapter.
just as shocked at her appearance as Benedict Wong, the principal's secretary, is when she walks through the door, and we're like,
So
"What is
funny.
this?" And again, all these things that happen in your head. Is this the clown from It? Is this Rosemary's Baby? Is it what
Is it the
happened to
devil?
Baby Jane?
Yeah.
I don't think that this is the real aunt of
No,
His mother hardly knows who this is. This is just obviously some sort of malignant force that's come into this city that needs this. I mean, we don't need to know more than that. And what she's doing with the twigs in the water, we see what she's doing with the twigs in the
she's a
water.
witch.
I mean, yeah,
Like what do
you
we need any
want to
more than
read
that?
the book about how this actually works scientifically? No one was going to give you that. So
It's
either
the
you like
yeah.
it or you don't. And maybe some people feel that it ends so abruptly after her death, but that's like the perfect ending.
It's the problem that Marvel has done to the society and to critics and to no, I'm being genuinely serious. They set up Thanos and don't pay it off for 6 years, but they tease him in every little thing, so you know everything about Thanos before you walk into that movie. And a movie like this, like I don't need to know the backstory for Jack O'Connell and Sinners. I just know that he's a vampire and he's terrifying and he's great in the film
You
and it
have all
works.
this with you already.
Yeah,
You're cultivated pop culture.
she's a evil being. And I watching the second time, she's literally there when Alex is being interviewed. You can see that in the opening,
Yeah,
in
the
like,
little red
and
hair
it's
sticking.
it's a little tease there. But then, so therefore, once again, protecting her identity, protecting that power. The thing about like the dad thinking that it's saying that it's your mom's your mom's aunt, that my mom did this for
Well, the
her.
dad says it's the mom's aunt. Gladys says to Benedict Wong, I'm her sister.
I'm her sister. Yes. I know. And then they're talking about we haven't seen this woman in like 15 years, but then she says to Alex, I remember you when you were a little kid. And it's just like, okay, none of this adds up. Like if anybody adds a timeline, it doesn't add up. And that's a point. It's a point of misdirection because if you can confuse somebody, then you can make them vulnerable and allow them to be able to be dissected and taken advantage of. And I think that that's what's so great about her. And I mean, like the point in which she asks for the things for the kids, she's playing on Alex's emotion. It's
Oh,
the
yes.
vulnerability of that scene
One
in
of the
Amy Adigan's.
scariest things you can ask a child, or
Yeah,
you witness this or you witness me doing it, you cannot tell a soul and you have to keep
she's
living
very
in
menacing
fear.
there. Yeah, and then literally the like next scene later, she's like, "I'm sick. Can you please help me?" And if I get better, then I'll I'll leave and
He
your
wants to help
parents.
his parents, yeah.
Yeah, and it's this absolute wicked lie. And you can see her like when he goes, and you'll leave, and she has like kind of like a little smirk and then a realization. She goes, yeah, then I'll leave. You know what I mean? And it's so good. Madigan, I think, delivers one of the performances of the year so far, easily. I think that she is wonderful. I mean, I also think too, she's got some great jump scares. She's menacing when she has to, manipulative, campy, all these different things.
Oh,
And
when she's
then
in the basement there, when
she's
Josh
in the
Brolin is
basement
gonna,
and
I
jumping
thought I
out,
was gonna jump out of my
or when
seat.
she's
I was
laying
like,
in Josh Brolin's dream and terrifies him. But then she has, I think, another one of the great tracking shots that we have in this film, the ending, which is one of the great endings of the year. This just the fact that Alex is able to get a strand of her hair, of what's left of her head, from her wig, snap it, and the kids run out of the basement and claim back claim back something from this powerful being and literally rip her apart.
and they run
Uh,
all over suburbia. It could be,
like four houses, five
it's
houses.
like Ferris Bueller or the bicycle scene in E.T. or Benny Hill or whatever you want. Just after this, it's hysterical,
It's
and
like
it's
I was
exactly what you
thinking,
want to happen.
yes, it is. And that's where I think when at the end of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you want Sharon Tate to live because that's the world you want to live in. You want to live in a world where somebody stopped the bad guys. Somebody kills Hitler in a theater. Somebody stops the Mansons, and inflicts pain also upon these people the way that these evil entities released uh, um you know release their dangerous thoughts and methods onto innocent people. And so it's it that's why it's so perfect that the kids are the ones to do this. it's almost like a Benny Hill sketch. You know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
it's almost like vaudeville the way that they're
It
just
is.
like,
They're all like,
it like
it's like Snoopy when they're all like running with their hands
yeah,
in the air. It's like,
it looks like they're all coming out the windows, and then the tracking shots look like Scorsese when they're going through the house, and it's so wonderful, and then when it's all done, they're just standing there left numb, and
and the
that's
entire town sees this. It's not like a
yeah.
secret just for them. Like,
But
we're
they've
just
all
there.
covered it up too. Like that's the other thing about this is like this is a massive cover up. And somebody, somebody was just like, how could they like I heard somebody, criticizing being like, well, didn't they say this was a real story? And it's like the narrator is also probably an unreliable narrator. People are taking this movie way too literal and also taking way too much not out of it. Like it's like
Just enjoy yourselves. And
it doesn't I don't understand how people aren't able to and that's the thing. It's like people were able to take in Sinners and be able to articulate, be able to figure out what Coogler's saying. Even Coogler was able to admit it. The problem is that Krieger has been coy, and I think that that's great. But this is also like a generation that like Nolan sat there and said, "Well, I don't know. What do you think? Does the spinning top actually fall down, or does it keep spinning?" And people still can't shut the fuck up and stop asking about that. So I think it is the problem that we don't see a lot of these challenging films in cinema all the time. And the minute that we do, people revolt or they feel off kiltered or they feel uncomfortable because answers weren't all given to them. But then if they are given to them, it's a criticism. And it's like, you know what? I just like the film to let me come up with it on my own. Maybe I'm smarter than some people. Maybe I'm not. I know I'm not smarter than everybody. Christina's a hell of a lot smarter than I am. But the fact of the matter is, it's like this is not a movie. This was not a hard movie to figure out. And once you do figure it out, it becomes a massively, massively satisfying
Mhm.
watch. And when you watch it then a second time and you start watching it with people, like the second time I was watching the film, I was picking up on things, but I was also like looking over and
Yeah, me
watching my
too.
wife watch this thing and watch that she had her mouth on the floor in the same time I had my mouth on the floor. And it's the kind of horror where like it is almost like you're we're watching twists happen and people are scared and like what people get scared of or react to is going to be different than everybody else. And I just find that to be like a fascinating theater going experience. And when I saw this at the press screening, probably the most engaged press screening I've been at in a long time, when the Madigan ending happens, round of applause, cheers, people absolutely ecstatic that this happened. It's crowd pleasing entertainment cinema, thought provoking cinema at its finest. And it's kind of like like the movie that we need. We need it's a $50 million mid budget horror film, mostly done through character work. It's going to make $300 million right now worldwide. That's an insane win. And it's an insane win when you have like Eggers and Peel, and now I think Zach Cregger right into that mix of elevated people. I don't consider Ari Aster. I know people want to put Ari Aster there. He's made two $70 million movies that bond at the box office. He's not in that wheelhouse. I think you have a new master of contemporary horror and
Mhm.
somebody that like, yes, he's doing a Resident Evil movie next. I'm excited for it. Like
He'll do something different. I think so. He'll make
yeah,
it his own.
he'll make it. Yeah, he's not taking any of the stories from the games or those other movies. And Austin Abrams is the lead.
Mhm.
Like Christina, that's great because like most people don't know who he is.
Look, this
Like
is
build a
the
movie
same when
star in there.
everyone was so worried about Craig Mazin doing The Last of Us. They make it, if they're good, they do something else
And he
with
did
it.
good with
Yes.
it. Yeah. No.
Well, we're both happy with this movie. Ryan, why don't we leave it at that? Ryan, tell everyone where they can find you.
You can find me eating Campbell's soup, um, which is truly, he didn't warm it up. Somebody's got to teach Alex to just get a burner and
He's a kid,
put
probably
something in the
afraid to use the
microwave.
stove. You know how many people he had to feed, the poor child?
True. By the end of it, he's feeding
Oh,
19 people. God, there's a whole thing about that I could get into with the what that says as well too, which is there's a lot I think with the Campbell soups. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterbox, Blue Sky at Ryan McQuade 77. You can find all my work over at awardswatch.com. If you like podcasts, Christina has been a guest on our director watch episodes over at Awards Watch. We released this week our final film in our Paul Verhoeven movie series about Benedetta. That's going to be this week, and then next week we start a new series over Ozu, the
Oh,
great
wow.
Japanese director, and we have already started recording those. I can just tell you this: very personal episodes for me and Jay coming soon. Tears on the podcast, very very good stuff. Starts with late spring. You can catch, I think, all those movies that we're going to cover on the series are on HBO Max. And but if you have the Criterion versions, go ahead and just watch them there because watching movies on physical is better than watching it on streaming.
That sounds amazing. Ryan, as always, thank you so much. And everyone else, you can catch Pop Culture Confidential wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time.